Greetings, welcome, salam alaikum. Welcome back to another segment of Education Today, Nation Building Time. Today, our topic is focused on building our communities, and we'd like to discuss some technical and some moral issues and concerns that would help build our community. We want to first start off with our reading concerning education. The purpose of education is the cultivation of the human being and the gifts that God has deposited in every human being. That's a quote from the Honorable Brother Minister Louis Farrakhan. So to sum it up in connection with our topic today, we're talking about self-improvement, the basis for community development. So self-improvement is indeed the keys to developing our communities. I'd like to also remind us of a bit of information that we covered in the past by Dr. Diallo Bagayoko, the law of human performance or of practice. So repetitiveness, the more we perform the practice, the more our performance levels goes up. So let's keep the law in mind. And speaking of law, we're going to read again. For those who've been with us, know that we read each week from the As a Man Thinketh by James Allen. James Allen was a 19th century, 1800s individual scholar who was based in London, England. And he wrote this book that has been reproduced in various languages throughout the world in millions and millions of copies. And it has an adaptation done that's titled As a Woman Thinketh. Basically the same text, but geared toward the terminology of the pronoun for the female gender. Mr. Allen writes, law, not confusion, is the dominating principle in the universe. Justice, not injustice, is the soul and substance of life. And righteousness, not corruption, is the molding and moving force in the spiritual government of the world. This being so, man has but to right himself to find that the universe is right, and during the process of putting himself right, he will find that as he alters his thoughts towards things and other people, things and other people will alter towards him. So with that said, we're talking about the law of human performance, and we're talking about the law of righteousness. Our righteousness will sustain us. And how does it connect with education? Well, once again, we also read from our book, the Teachings 2.0. These are the Twitter sayings of the Honorable Brother Minister Louis Farrakhan, the Teachings 2.0. And we want to read once again in terms of education and knowledge. The acquisition of knowledge is the duty of everyone, whether it is in college, in a library, or just studying what you would like to become a master of. So, and in this day and age, as we talked previously, we have technology that will help facilitate that. And the Honorable Elijah Muhammad has taught that you could have a university under a tree. So there is no excuse for us not learning today in this 21st century, because whereas we went from tablets of stone to writing on parchment, to writing on animal skins, to writing on paper, now we have electronic media that would help facilitate that. And with the World Wide Web, we have no excuse for not learning whatever it is our hearts desire us to learn for the good of man and mankind and righteousness. Ms. Farrakhan goes on to say, the greater understanding we have of what we learn in class, the greater we will be our service to the community. First things must be first. Get the knowledge, then get the experience of giving it to others. So in the African proverb, each one teach one. We must get the knowledge and then take it out into the community, and in other words, put it to work. Give it to others and build our community. So on our sub-theme, our title really is today's subject is building our communities. We need to expand in the area of science and technology, then use that knowledge and skill to build our community. That's my premise for today. We need to expand in the areas of science and technology, then use that knowledge and skill to build our community. Building a greater widespread knowledge of self as a people and understanding of self-sufficiency in gaining and maintaining self-sustainability will reduce the self-destructive behaviors. Now, understanding that I wanted to impart to us and pull together these portions of what I've already shared with you, I want to look at some information, some teaching from the Honorable Elijah Muhammad in Message to the Black Man in America, which is a book that he has written, which is widely distributed, and you can obtain that here in the city. Any information that I impart or my guests impart on this show, you can follow up by calling me or contacting me on the email that you see on our opening, and I'll restate that later. And so in chapter 93, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad writes, self-pride, self-interest, and self-independence, and the desire of a country and of a government of our own under the law of justice and righteousness for every one of our people, black people throughout the earth. But let us start first here in America, where we are the victims of no freedom, justice, equality, and we know the pains of being divided. He says, at present, we have hundreds of clubs and organizations, thousands of teachers, hundreds of educators, scholars, scientists, technicians, doctors, lawyers, judges, congressmen, ambassadors, professors, tradesmen of all kinds, and engineers of most every kind. We have all kinds of religious believers, teachers, preachers by the thousands, agriculturalists, herbsmen, and cattlemen, and fishermen, and hundreds of hunters of wild game. What more do we need to build unity of the whole for the whole? What actually is preventing this unity of 22 million or more of us in this ignorance and foolishness, love and fear of our enemies in the professional and leadership class of this nation of 22 million black people up from slavery? This is to say that we need to heighten our direct involvement in the local government and communities that we are found living. This type of leveraging will serve as a means to develop our communities and restore more neighborhood businesses and reduce crime through the creation of employment opportunities. So I want to share my thoughts on what he has written, because here in Cincinnati, we are and have been blessed for a number of years to have a sizable number of people in the various professions that he had mentioned right here in this area. We have major corporations such as General Electric and Procter & Gamble. We have scientists who are black scientists who've been working in those corporations for years and years, over 50 years or more since they've been established here, who hold many, many patents of creation of products. And those people, you know, many people are just finding out about many of those people. And so like Dr. Smitherman, our Councilman Christopher Smitherman's father, who was a scientist and created a huge number of patents for the local corporation that he worked for before leaving and retiring from that profession, and then going into the direct education of high school students as principal of Western Hills High School. So we do have him. Then we also have a man who worked for P&G for a number of years and invented the mobile refrigeration unit, Mr. Jones. He was a scientist and did creation. There are many, many more that work for General Electric and Procter & Gamble that are creating products. And these are what I call our silent giants. These are people who exist among us and come out and communicate with the community at various times, at various levels, but many of us don't know what they're doing in their professional lives. And these are people who may have investments in the black community in terms of real estate and so forth. But these are quiet giants. So, but what we need is a new generation of quiet giants to rise up and to help develop the community. Then we need those quiet giants to work together and to be more vocal in training the next generation of leadership and developers for our community. Thus, we can redevelop the areas where we live, our communities, and put back in the businesses that used to be in our community back in the 40s, 50s, 60s, and begin to fade out during the 70s, 80s, and almost obliterated in the 90s and 2000s. We have the very few businesses within the black communities that are not owned and run by people of the black community. So how do we do that? That's what we're going to get into today. And part of that, I'm always giving my sources so that if you want to research my sources, you can go back and see for yourself and not take things on my word. But I do impart my thoughts after amassing some of this knowledge in my head and coming to some conclusions. I will be sharing some of those, and I'll make a distinct difference between my thoughts and the thoughts of these who knowledge I'm bringing forth to you. I want to share with you a bit of information that comes from the Education Partnership Incorporated, the IEP, which is a research group that likes to focus in on what they term here as research into practice. And this is on the importance of high expectations. See, we must have high expectations in order to have the confidence, to build the confidence not only in our individual self, but those generation of young people who we need to cultivate and help see the positive and see that there is a vision of hope in life and strive for that. And this would help us reduce the crime within our community. We know that we have senseless killings within our community almost on a daily basis, but definitely on a weekly basis. We have some senseless killings. And most of this killing is the lack of knowledge of self, lack of love of self, because if you have a lack of knowledge of self, you're going to have a lack of love of self. And if you have a lack of love of self, you have a lack of love of life and lack of love of everyone else on the planet whom you come into contact with. So it's only a matter of time before something occurs that strikes your displeasure before you will snap and injure another individual or cause bodily harm to yourself. So we want to reduce the rate of crime in the community. And oftentimes, you just can't walk up to a person and say, hey, don't do that. They might not do it while you're there, but as soon as you walk away, they might do it. Or they may just be angry and turn on you, and you end up being the victim of crime and taken off this planet through senseless violence. So we want to come back. One of my aims is to impart knowledge that would allow us to put within ourselves a moral fortitude that will keep us restrained from the dark side of thinking, the negative side of thinking, let me say, not as opposed to the dark side of thinking, because out of darkness comes light, and light is symbolized as wisdom, and everything had evolved and started from the dark. In the beginning, it was triple darkness. So dark is a positive thing. But we want to talk about the importance of high expectations. Okay, and here in this study, it says that either high or low expectations become a self-fulfilling prophecy. So whatever expectation you have, that is what you're going to attract toward you. That is what you will end up eventually perpetuating, doing it, in other words. So it says, students perform in ways that teachers expect. Teachers' beliefs about students' potential are particularly powerful for students of color and students from poor families. That's from Professor Ferguson from the year 2000 in the 2002 in the study. So that is to say teachers. Now we've already declared that everyone can be a teacher, because if each one teach one, even a child can teach another child, even a child can teach an adult. Anytime you impart some unknown knowledge to another individual, then you are teaching them that particular thing. So keep that in mind. So the power of positive thinking is very important, and we want to be found wrapping our minds around positive thinking so that we can prophetically prophesy, bring into fruition, take our dreams from being dreams and apparitions through the cross between the conscious and the subconscious mind, the id and the ego, into visions. And the only way to do that is to have positive thoughts around them, positive plans around them, and we'll spend more time talking about plans, and we're going to spend more time in the future. Matter of fact, our next segment of education today will be centered around positive thinking, and we'll be talking about language, positive language, and we're going to look at the negative side of the language that permeates the community. And so the topic of that will be the language of oppression, and how people in the black community begin to do the self-fulfilling prophecy of oppression of self, simply behind passing on in the usage of negative terms and words, and even to the point of trying to make those terms positive when they are negative, and they set self-hate in the place. So if you don't love yourself, you can't love anybody else. So keep that in mind. Well, that's for the future coming up, starting next week. Okay, so they say high expectation motivation. Many scholars report a link between expectations and motivation. So if you have high expectation, positive thoughts in your mind, you will be highly motivated to move toward bringing those into reality, into fruition, making them happen. Students' intrinsic motivation is evident when they desire to learn simply because it interests them, or they recognize the importance of learning. So we gravitate, in other words, towards subjects that interest us, that strikes our fancy, that we want to know more about. That's what motivates us. So if we begin to talk to our young people about developing businesses and becoming entrepreneurs and studying in the field of the sciences and technology, which is what this modern 21st century is anchored on, every turn of the century, every century is anchored on some form of science and technology. So I'm not just saying that the prior century didn't focus on science and technology. We're at what I would like to call a heightened level of science and technology. We have taken it far beyond what the previous century had taken it. So when we talk about science and technology, that's what I'm referring to as far as its usage and its place. So we have to become interested in the various sciences that I had mentioned earlier from the reading of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. And we can do that even if you're in an urban setting, because I know that there is a program even for agriculture in Cincinnati Public Schools housed at Western Hills High School. And we already established that anything you want to learn, you can learn online. Heck, you can get up on a Sunday morning, Saturday morning, I do often, and look at the Ohio agricultural programming on your local Ohio TV, such as Channel 48 and others. Some coming out of the Dayton area as well. So you can get that, and you can also get the farm reports that come on through the Kentucky channels. So anything you want to learn, there's no excuse. All you have to do is seek, and you will find that knowledge. Okay, so with that said, we're talking about high expectations and motivations, and what motivate us as individuals. And it is our desire. Well, you can't have a desire if no one imparts that knowledge, exposes you to that knowledge. Now you might say that you can do that. You don't have to have somebody physically in front of you. That's true. You don't have to have someone who you know directly. That's true, because you can get it electronically, over the TV, over the radio, over the computer. And you can have those people who you see that you never converse with, but you watch them, you follow them. Maybe now you can easily follow a person online talking some positive things or into some scholarly works or the realm of their profession. You can, if you're interested in the medical field, you can type in the National Association of Doctors and go into their website, and you might say, well, that's a little above my vocabulary. Well, any subject that you want to search, you put the search phrase in, say, becoming a doctor, and then you put grade 6, and you will get information written at the 6th grade level about that topic. So all you have to do is put your grade level, and the information that will come up will be at your level and not at the University of Cincinnati Medical School level or any other university medical school or law school or undergraduate pre-med program language. It will be at whatever grade level you're at, and you can find a host of information on the various topics so that you can begin your adventure down the road of acquiring knowledge in that particular field that you're interested in. It's as simple as that. Talking about young adults wanting to build businesses. You go online. You can go online to government.org and type in the topic you're interested in, and you will find a host of information. You can type in phrases that tie into that type of business and come up with a host of information. So we want to look at positive thinking to stop negative self-talk, which causes this stresses out the community. So we want to reduce stress. How do we reduce the stress? How do we get relaxed? How do we get motivated into looking at this self-fulfilling prophecy of achievement in an area that would affect not only our direct communities here in Cincinnati, but would have an impact on the broader community within the bounds of Cincinnati, the state of Ohio, and so forth and so on. So this article comes from the staff at the Mayo Clinic, and it's entitled Positive Thinking, Stop Negative Self-Talk to Reduce Stress. Positive thinking helps with stress management and can even improve your health. Practice overcoming negative self-talk with examples provided. Okay, now you've heard this many times. This is what they're writing. I'll quote it, but some of this you will be familiar with. First time I heard this phrase was in the writing from the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. But the staff at the Mayo Clinic writes, is your glass half empty or half full? Half empty or half full? Is the glass half empty or half full? So that reflects on your perspective. How do you see life? You see? So you can look at the glass half empty or half full, and if you want either way it goes, you're going to have a self-fulfilling prophecy around the topic of focus of that particular glass. So either you're going to be successful in establishing a business, or you're going to be a failure at establishing a business. Either you're going to be positive around the type of business you engage in, or you're going to be into a negative type of business that you engage in. So because the successful business person in the underworld on the streets involved in the selling of drugs and other contraband, stolen goods, and so forth, they may be successful as a business person, and they are employing the same skill set that needs to be employed in the overworld, doing honest business instead of doing criminal behavior business. So people need to understand that. And most time people don't think they can achieve and being successful in the overworld, which is the everyday world of righteous business, and they think that they could only be successful in the negative underworld, or they see that as easy and quick money. Okay, and so they are willing to, because they don't see the value of self and other people, they're willing to put their life on the line and engage in the rest of the baggage that comes along with that, killing each other, beating each other, and just selling poison so others can OD and die from that. They don't see the value of taking that skill set that allowing them to move hundreds of pounds of negative death product, poison, and killing people in themselves, or killing somebody because they crossed you in that field of work. They don't see that skill set of salesmanship, of management, of organization, of leadership that they could bring into the righteous world and be successful in running a clothing business, running any type of business that they desire, and even employing and putting together a grocery store in the community. So you have the same business skill sets in the overworld as you have in the underworld, okay? So we want to do things that are righteous and that will help and not harm others. So it goes on to say, this article by the staff of the Mayo Clinic says, they raise the question, how you answer, well, they make the statement, how you answer this age-old question about positive thinking may reflect your outlook on life, your attitude toward yourself, and whether you're optimistic or pessimistic, and it may even affect your health. So optimistic means looking at the positive side. Pessimistic means looking at the negative side. So here's a research study by a team of scientists, doctors at the Mayo Clinic that gives proof to what I know that you might even heard your parents or grandparents say, you know, is your glass, ask that question, is your glass half empty or half full, and talk about the power of positive thinking. Now, many people do not look at these sayings with as much credence as they should. So therefore, you know, I have thought about these sayings and I have researched to find scientific data and information that will back up some of the things that you hear every day. Indeed, some studies show that personality traits such as optimism and pessimism can affect many areas of your health and well-being. The positive thinking that usually comes with optimism is a key part of effective stress management. And effective stress management is associated with many health benefits. If you tend to be pessimistic, don't despair. You can learn positive thinking skills. So in other words, back to the Ep.5's study that connects with this Mayo Clinic study, we're basically saying the expectations and support that you get ties hand in hand. Essential to the culture of high expectations is providing students with high levels of support. To merely increase expectations without helping students achieve success almost always lead to frustration and failure. That's by William and Blackburn, 2010. Support includes scaffolding within lessons by using graphic organizers and chunking information, incorporating motivational elements in the lesson, identifying strategies, knowledge in the lesson, and having a plan to provide students with additional help and support, including especially during the school day. That's Blackburn 2008 and 2012. So this is to say that's what takes place in the school setting. That is best practice that teachers are employing today in the classroom. But those best practices can be employed outside the classroom as well as at home. If we give the students high expectations, we simply just don't want to tell them. We want to be able to expose them to experiences that reinforce that. so that they begin to put the knowledge into practice. That's why we started off by saying self-improvement is the key to community development. So it's the mere basis for community development. Self-improvement is the basis for community development. So it is key in the lives of people, not only to motivate each other and motivate oneself, but we are to expose people to actual practices in which they can see. Because if someone else can achieve it, you can achieve it. So we have to keep that in mind. And so back to further this discussion, I want to share with you some more information from a couple more sources. On the subject, we talked about employment and employment opportunities and creating businesses in our communities. If you look around Cincinnati, you can see a transitional change taking place in every community throughout the greater Cincinnati area. You can travel outside of greater Cincinnati and go into another state, into another city, and you will see the same phenomenon taking place. I've said it earlier on segments of this show, and I've said it to many others, even when we were back in the 1990s, moving toward the year 2000, when a lot of people were speculating Nostradamus's projections of the earth coming to an end, the world coming to an end. Many people say the world coming to an end because we have a misunderstanding of what the world is and a misunderstanding of what the earth is. The earth is the planet in which we live on. The world, there are many worlds on this planet. The world is that environment in which you exist, which also encompasses your mental as well as your physical items in that environment, things in the environment. So when we say the world, we have, like now, the world of telecommunication. I am sitting here in the world of telecommunication, and you are part of the world of telecommunication as a viewer. I'm part of the telecommunication as a presenter. And then we have Rob over there. He's part as the engineering, as part of this world of telecommunication right here in Cincinnati, Ohio, where we are producing these shows to impart this knowledge. That's a world right there. And so I was listening to a bit participant in a discussion earlier here at the studio, people talking about the world of veganism, which is a form of dietary focus that people are restrained from eating I guess, items on the planet that human beings eat that reproduce through male-female relations. Is that kind of what you were saying earlier? Okay, I had to check with that. That's a perspective that Prince, the artist, had imparted at one time. But there's a world of veganism in which the artist of Prince belongs to, Brother Michael belongs to, my brother physical sibling Sam belongs to, and a whole host of others belong to, and Brother Rob's wife belonged to. So that's a world, the world of veganism. You have worlds. We have the world of criminality running the streets of America rapidly in the urban areas, somewhat god-awfully. We have the world of a disease epidemic of heroin addiction that's running rapid, that's trying to be combated. That's a world, okay? But all of these worlds interconnect and intertwine. But the earth itself, that's the ground that we walk upon. The earth with its land, with its water, with its atmosphere, and all the living things upon it, and all the non-living things, the biotic and the abiotic things on the earth. So the earth may not come to an end, but your world might come to an end. When we leave this earth, our world at that time comes to an end. If I was once an active member of the vegetarian world, and then I kind of slipped off of that and got back into that lovely fish that I like, the red sockeye. which makes me happy. So I left that world. Now I'm into the world. I'm still into the world of conscious health individuals on the planet. And so I read, I attempt to practice those things that would extend my life through my dietary. So that's the world. And in that world, you have some people who are meat eaters, and some people who are vegans, and some people who are vegetarians, okay? Depending on the best that you want for yourself and your human body, you will evaluate, what you're going to put into it. So we at different levels within that world, but that's a world, okay? So some worlds come to an end and some worlds continue. Now you might say, well, there are some worlds that came to an end. Sodom and Gomorrah, as we read in the scriptures, were worlds where they, if you go to that geographic area, nothing even grows in those areas. You can see some documentaries if you tune into some of the religious channels on TV, or even the Geographic Channel, or even just Channel 48. I saw a good documentary once on, so you can find out that information. So we have to be sure that we are gravitating in a world where we can foster positive thinking and positive growth, and then enjoin one another into truth in that world and make something happen. That's what we're talking about. Make something happen better for our communities. I heard read in the Honorable Elijah Muhammad's teachings that, no community wants their community disrespected. So no self-respecting community wants to be involved with a disrespecting community. Now, you're a disrespecting community if you're not doing for self. If you're sitting around tearing up your community, killing each other off, not investing in your community, not making your community a decent place to live. That's a theme that the Honorable Minister Farrakhan has struck on over the last 4 months. Make your communities a decent place to live. Now, if you do that, you're going to have some knowledge base, and you're going to have to be able to employ that knowledge base and come together in unity, because one person can't do it by themselves. Now, you might say, well, I can't do nothing. I don't have anything. Well, you do. You have the desire. If you have the desire and motivation, this is why I'm talking now, the desire and motivation to want to take in what you're hearing over these airwaves and implement them so that you can improve the block you live on, well, the building you live in, then the block you live in, then the community. And there are mechanisms. If you're in Avondale, you can join the Avondale Community Council. Western Hills, you can join the Western Hills Community Council. Bond Hill, you can join the Bond Hill Community Council. West End Community Council, so forth and so on. You can. Now, I know it can be done because as a young man, in my late teens, I had, and early 20s, I had gained my first apartment, moved single man by myself. I like cleanliness. They say cleanliness is next to godliness. So I would clean the hallway in my sector of the building. We had hallways that were separated by fire doors, and we had about 6 apartments on the end that I stayed on. So I would clean the floor every Saturday, sweep it, mop it, and if it got, real dirty between, I'd do it prior to that. But I was on a regular schedule to do it every Saturday. And I went to our building association. Mount Auburn Good Housing Foundation owned the building, so I went to a meeting because I was interested in community planning and development. And they were discussing the physical condition of the buildings that they own. And then somebody brought up, well, we go on the building I live in, this one floor, they always clean. Why our floor can't be clean like that? Then they had to ask the question, well, who's cleaning the floor? Then when they mentioned the floor and the apartment number, apartment 23, it was at 100 Malvern Place, which is the only apartment building in that part of the town now, because Christ Hospital is expanding and bought up all the land and what they used to call the castle It was a hard stone building built over 100 years ago. I believe they taught us that Nicholas Longworth even stayed in that building at one time. So you can take some time out, look him up in history and read about the history of Cincinnati and Nicholas Longworth. And so this is the building. Anyway, to make a long story short and get back to our topic, I'm trying to make a point here about being able to be motivated and knowing that you make a difference with the little that you do. So when I said, hey, I clean that, I clean it every Saturday, then look at the good that came out of it. They said, hey, would you be interested in cleaning all the floors like that and the laundry room? I said, of course, because they said they would pay me. So they paid me enough that I even told them, hey, don't even cut me the check, just apply it to my rent. And I ended up paying $50 a month for rent because all the rest was my work of helping to keep the building up, something that I was doing anyway. Okay, so here it is, things that you do and don't mind doing and makes you happy because that gives you time to think and smile and clean and, you know, sometimes, as I was, be by yourself and get your thoughts together. So it was a good positive thing. A lot of positive came out of that. So the topic we really need to look at is another topic from an article, September the 4th, 2009, that was written in the Final Call newspaper by the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, was Black Man Do for Self or Suffer the Consequences. So we have got to be able to get our young people to stop killing each other. So if we don't do it, we suffer the consequences of mass murders growing in our communities. And over this past week, we have seen two. We've seen a man coming from work that hit a child in his car, and we've seen some young people take that man's life, shooting. And you know, from the article I read, the father scooped the child up and jumped in his car and ran to the hospital, and the young people came along, and something else happened, and the man is no longer living among us. So we're waiting on more information about that incident to come out. But my point in bringing that up is look at the mindset of the young people. Look at the mindset of the young people. Not only that, we had a mass shooting at a club in which a person died and many others got wounded. And young people, look at the mass shootings of young people, young adults. Okay, to be in a nightclub and to be around liquor, you have to be over 21. So, you know, these are young adults. And look at the mindset. So we're trying to impart information that will help us guard against such mindset. So we're talking about how do we build a better community? Well, we have to gain a good financial understanding. And that I want to share in an article by Brian E. Muhammad from the Final Call in March 28, 2017, entitled Education Hard Work Won't Bridge America's Racial Wealth Gap Report. So he's writing about this report that came out. And he's making the point that education and hard work alone won't do it. You have to put that education and that hard work to work. So one of our Cincinnati residents who has relocated to another city, but Jim Klingman, who was here for many years as a community activist and a professor at the University of Cincinnati, he writes in his book, Black Dollars Matter, Teach Your Dollars How to Make More Sense. So Black Dollars Matter, Teach Your Dollars How to Make More Sense. I'm sure if you're interested in following up, you can get online and order that book. But Mr. Klingman says in his writings, because he does an online, what they call it, a website that you can get more information from him too. So he lectures and writes on business and wealth empowerment. And he also has articles in various black newspapers. There's a black newspaper syndicate where people write and send the same articles out to various newspapers. So from time to time you can see him in the Cincinnati Herald newspaper, Pittsburgh Carrier, and Chicago Tribune and other papers around the nation. So he writes about this whole phenomenon and talks about this report. And the bottom line is looking at the income gap between the black community, the white community, and the Hispanic community, and the reasons why this gap exists, and how we can pull ourselves up to close the gap. Now, there's not only gaps in economics that exist, there are gaps in educational achievement that exist. And we in the educational field have been, for decades, looking to close this gap. And so some of what would help us close this gap is to be able to impart knowledge to our young people that will help them stay on a positive growth end. So one thing we must do is we must support our institutions of finance within the black community. We don't have a black bank in Cincinnati. We used to have several black credit unions here, but we don't now. But there are other cities in the vicinity, and now that much of our banking is done online and over the phone, you can invest in other black banks throughout the U.S. And you can go online to find out. There is a website that's geared toward black owned banks and banking. So you can type that in and find out more information. But the Minister Farrakhan writes, we must make the business world more accountable to us. So those banks in our communities, whether they're black banks, whether they're banks that are owned by Hispanics or banks owned by whites or Asians, if we bank in there, we must hold them accountable. We must do our due diligence, our background work, and our practice that we would put ourselves in a financial condition to be able to leverage the offerings that the banks give. We must know who our bank manager is, establish a relationship where your bank manager know you and you know your bank manager, and you can go in and talk to them and gain information that would benefit you in doing what you need to do. They're more than happy to share that information. Banks also have financial officers that are connected with their banks nowadays. They're becoming more diverse in these days than they have in the past. So we have to establish a relationship with our banks, and we have to develop more institutions ourselves. We have to support those institutions, because we right here in Avondale, across the street, we used to have, in the Avondale Town Center, we used to have a black bank. It had developed from a black credit union, designed and constructed by the churches in the area. Then it became a full-scale black bank, and then the bank is no longer there. So that tells me that we didn't give a lot of support. We didn't give the support that we needed to that financial institution, because if we were given the support that we needed to that financial institution, it would still be sitting across the street today. Same thing happened with the grocery store that was in the area, and the support that we did give. You know, a lot of the chains like major corporation grocery stores, they can survive through people coming in and doing the 5-finger discount. You know, taking the meat, sticking them in their shirts and things like that. You get a small independent operation, they can't survive with products going out the back door, out the front door, under somebody's shirt. So if we want these institutions to exist in our community, we must support them in a righteous kind of way. You know, if a person, in today's society, with so many soup kitchens and churches and places that you can go and get a meal, there's no real excuse for people to be stealing food. There's too much support in the American society and communities to drop to that level, and you don't have to do nothing criminal if you need to feed your family. If a person wants to do some righteous work, you can be creative and seek knowledge and be knowledgeable. You can go to the public library if you don't have the electronics and the computer and look up a particular field. You can volunteer your service in the area that you're interested in, and then let the people know what your goals are. Somebody might just give you a lawnmower and a full can of gas that you can go out and make some money. So we need to support these institutions in the most righteous way that we can. So moving right along in sharing this information, we have about 8 minutes left in our show here, in our program. I don't like to say a show because we're sharing vital information, and it's not a show. It is I guess it's a show and tell, but it is a program designed to impart vital information to you. So if we, as Mr. Farrakhan has stated, that if we failed, and that's in this article in the most recent Final Call by Brian Muhammad, he says that blacks failed to analyze and follow the successful models and strategic example other ethnic groups follow to benefit their own people. And so we're talking about, if you want to read this further, it's on page 7. You can type in Final Call newspaper and get access to it online, or you can just see one of the brothers out in the community with paper. Or you can just email me and I'll make sure you get the article. But we have to be able to see. If we don't know what's going on, we have to study others. Okay, within our community and outside our community. And there are people throughout all walks of life that'll be more than happy to help you. And one thing I found out, and I always tell young people, if myself and a young person are in the same industry, people are more apt to support the young person because they figure I'm old enough that I'm gonna get mine. And the young person may need more support than I. And the young person have more years to look forward to in developing that, and they want to build that young person's enthusiasm and their motivation in that area, whereas I already have a nice amount of enthusiasm and motivation and understanding that I can, do more and more broad access than that young person. So people are more apt to support a young person than they are the older you get. So the younger you get, the better it is to get started in your endeavor. All right, so with that said, with economics, there has to be a moral component to help us with economic plan, says the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. And so with this said, this is what I'm talking about. If we impart to our young people a strong moral foundation, then we can reduce the violence in our community and increase the economic development in our community and improve on the facade, the physical area in our community, the buildings in our community, the homes in our community, and our community will shine like a beacon for others to look at and learn from. Right now, we don't have that. And then I hear so many people, as we wind this down, I hear so many people, and I have discussed with so many people talking about how our communities are being gentrified. Well, if you don't take charge of your community, someone else will. And so whose fault is it? It's our own fault. The City Planning Commission has put out their report 15, 20 years in advance. You can go down to City Hall, get the report, study the report, know what the new development is coming in at. You can tune in to council meetings. If you don't go down to council because you're working, you can turn on the public access and see Cincinnati City Council and every other council of a government region that surrounds Cincinnati, all the little small towns. You can see their council and townships. You can see their council meetings also. So you can know where things are going and you can prepare just as any other people. It is shameful to be pointing the finger at other people because we dropped the ball. That's like watching this March Madness. Man come down court and he throw a bad pass, or he don't throw the pass at all, or he just drop the ball, and the other team get the ball and go. He don't have no business yelling at the man he was looking at attempting to throw the ball to, because he dropped the ball. So he can't get mad at his teammate. So if you can't get mad at the defensive player by stealing the ball and going down court. So we have to hold self accountable, our individual selves accountable. We have to hold one another whom we work with accountable, and we have to begin to hold our young people accountable, or the violence will escalate totally out of control, and then people from outside the community will come in. And you've heard talk about the Chicago environment and how the U.S. government is considering sending in some folks to control that. So if we don't control this violence ourselves, some others will come in and they will control it in their way. So let's think about that. So as we wind down here, I want to recap real quick what we've been talking about. We're talking about the law of human performance. That's the more we do something, study, practice, put into practice, develop, the better we're going to get at that which we're doing. And that we can learn multiple places in this day and time, and we must take on a positive framework, a positive thought of mind, so that we can be more aggressive around our levels of achievement. So with that said, give them a little signal here. Okay. We have 2 minutes and then we'll close. So let me read one more thing. Spend money wisely. And I'll read this as we close. Spend money wisely. In the Honorable Elijah Muhammad's monumental book, Message to the Black Man in America, he writes, "There is no need for us, millions throughout the country, spend our money for the joy and happiness of others. As a result, as soon as we are thrown out of a job, we are back at the doors of white people begging for bread and soup. How many clothing shops do we operate in this country? Very few. Yet all of us wear clothes. Who made our clothes for us? Who sold them to us? Who have a few grocery stores, but this is not enough to feed 30 million people. We have a few grocery stores, but this is not enough to feed 30 million people in America. Should we not have clothing factories making clothes for ourselves? Should we not have more stores to sell our people everything that we need or want? We must do something for self. So get up and begin to talk to the young people from a moral standpoint, and to get young people to think about entrepreneurship and think about going into science and technology fields and being able to share that which was shared in the past. So with that said, I'd like to thank you for tuning in. I look forward to next week. We're going to be talking about the language of oppression. We're going to be talking about that which takes place that allows people to live in the underworld and to perpetuate self-hate and the self of others. So with that said, I'd like to greet you in the words of peace. Assalamu alaikum. May peace be unto you until the next time.